pronounce it
right. No, Griot B. Griot B. No, I'm no, trust me. The one of the least things I should know is how to pronounce my guest name. I've been doing this for 14 years. So the one thing I gotta know is how to pronounce your name. Everything else we'll get afterwards. Hello, everybody. We're on the air talking about names. And I'm going to tell you his name in a second, of course. Hi, I'm James Lott Jr. Welcome to In Between Pages with James Lott Jr. This is my show on JLJ Media, my online network. I'm one of the few Black men who has an online network, so I do have one of those. If you're here, follow, subscribe, comment, share with everyone, because we have a very important conversation with another Black educator who's out there doing things for our communities. Educator into Black Lives Matter, homeschool history. He has some funny stuff on Instagram. You should see his videos from a while back. They're hilarious. World History Wednesdays, Latinx lesson lines, schoolyard rap. There's so many things going on. Griot B. How you doing, Griot?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Mr. James Lott Jr., JLJ. Glad to be here, man, and thoroughly appreciate the opportunity to talk about what we're doing here and, get to know you and some people out there as they get to know me as well.
Yeah, so definitely. And so, folks, again, this is my online network. Go ahead and like, subscribe, comment. We do have a live chat, so if you want to say anything, ask me any questions or comment, you can do so. It's a safe space. Go ahead and do that. We are here to have talk about life and what's going on now, and seeing what he's doing, what he is actually doing. It's Black History Month. I'm just going to dive right on in. In Black History Month, what does that mean to you? I'm always curious about us Black folks. What is it like? What does it mean to you?
Black History Month. Yeah, Black History Month to me, it's a necessary moment, right? It's not the whole gamut. See, the thing is, Black history is American history. That's what Black history. We've been here since the beginning of this country. In fact, we've built this country. I'm not talking about Crispus Attucks, but rather also Prince Estabrook at the Battle of Lexington. So even in the Revolutionary fight, we were here during that time. In addition, all the economic success of America and the ability for America to grow and to be as powerful as it was on the back of our ancestors who were enslaved, right? And so Black history is American history, and it's a part of history that's been swept under the rug and not taught. In fact, the reason that Black History Month exists, part of me in the first place is, Carter G. Woodson came up with the idea, one of my fraternity brothers, Omega Psi Phi fraternity, by the way. I got to shout out to the brothers real quick, Ru. Carter G. Woodson came up with the idea as Negro Achievement Week. And yes, it's the shortest month, but that's because in February is when we celebrate Frederick Douglass as well as Abraham Lincoln's birthday. And so that's what it started as. And so I call it a necessary moment because without Black History Month, our students, our schools will never, ever teach Black history. And our students won't know the true gamut of American history that has included the contributions, the faces, the improvements of African Americans. All they'd ever learn is the struggle of slavery and segregation. And that's why it's a necessary moment.
When you say Black history is American history, I want to shout to the rooftops. I do, because I feel like it's been, because, okay, I'm a little older than some people out there. There was no Black history when I was growing up. That wasn't happening in the 70s and 80s. It came later. But I always felt like it's always put as this other thing. It's like there's a history, and there's Black history, and then there's Mexican history. And it's always everything's otherized, so to speak. So by you saying this, if anybody watches this video from now to the end of time and hears that one phrase, I'm good. I think it's such an important, it's a small sentence.
Yeah.
But it's a very powerful sentence, right?
Yeah. And the reason it's powerful is because it's the truth, James. It's the truth. And the truth may make people uncomfortable. The truth may make people get in their feelings. The truth may make people, internalize things and to feel certain ways. But the thing about the truth is it's the truth. And that's what I've been doing over this past, 3 years of traveling the country and educating people is I present nothing but factual information. And though opinions may be there, the opinions are based solely on factual truths.
Okay, so you are actually, I want folks to know this, you're an educator, college educated, but you have letters after your name and all that. He does. But you got them, and we're very proud of that. But I feel like you must have always had this personality too. So this must be a great way for you to meld both together, right?
Yeah, it is. Growing up, my mom, I went to a church called Harvest Christian Center in Los Angeles, California. And at the church, it was a middle-class Black neighborhood, View Park, Baldwin Hills area. And there were a lot of affluent. You said what?
I'm in Inglewood.
Oh, you in Inglewood? Oh, you're right. Yep. My first teaching job was in Inglewood. But so in that church, there were plenty of affluent African Americans in the film industry. You know, Chip Fields. You know, Kim Fields' mom.
I know her.
You know, Pastor Elder Hearns. I forget his name, but he worked for CBS, and then Troy Rowland, and there was a bunch of different people at my church. And so growing up, they wanted me to be a child actor, right? They saw the talent. They saw the enthusiasm, but my mom wanted me to steer away from that. She didn't want that for my life, and she wanted me to focus elsewhere. And so, other than that, and people saying I was going to be a preacher growing up, this is kind of really me answering my calling in a sense. It's me fulfilling my purpose, using the talents that I've been given to do what I do. When I travel, I say, they said I was going to be a preacher growing up, and I don't preach the gospel. That's not what I'm doing when I go to these schools, universities, or colleges. But what I am doing is I'm preaching love. Right. And that's the greatest commandment. Love of thy neighbor. So people who aren't Black, who are, white or of other race, I want you to understand and love thy neighbor, the things that African Americans and different people of color have contributed to our country's history. And then secondly, love of thyself, giving people of color the opportunity to celebrate themselves and truly have a moment to be like, hey, we are pretty awesome. My history is pretty dope. I'm kind of cool. I love myself because that feels good.
yeah. But again, you're saying, so hello to chat, hello, Adrian. But what you're saying is, so again, it sounds like regular stuff, but it's actually revolutionary because we're told by society, we're told by, I work in the media, told by the media, told by our past, whatever, that we don't matter, that we aren't that big, that we're always fighting that, aren't we? We're being told by some folks we're kings and queens, and we're told other folks you're second-class citizens, you don't belong here. So like there's that push and pull all the time.
Yeah.
How do you personally kind of? I mean, I've always thought highly of myself, so I kind of got through stuff. But how did you get through that yourself, going from high school to college, and how do you stay like that?
It was a moment I had. I play. I'm all about America, right? And I'm not talking about make America great. I'm not one of those people. What I am, I love my country. I think that even, I get that if we're talking about really your statement, the two different opposite sides, right? Kings and queens, just second class, right? So there's ends to this. In the middle where I stand ultimately is, I believe that African Americans, since we have been here, since we have been ultimately disenfranchised, and there have been systems of marginalization and racism throughout our country's history geared and aimed towards us, it's our obligation, right? It's the obligation to actually contribute to the change. Otherwise, we're not going back to Africa. No, we're staying here in my country, and we're going to fix this for everybody. And so I say that because I had a polarizing moment really when I was in college, right? I played college football, UC Davis, California, and I took my... Oh yeah, go Ags. Don't make me do the fight song because I will. It was a moment where my first African American history class that I ever took, and I watched a video of the civil rights movement, like a live one, and for the first time, for that moment, I hate to say I hated my teammates, my white teammates for a moment, because it caused so much pain and anger, right? And of course that dissipated, right? But I think that moment really made me understand more than anything that it is imperative to understand history, but also understand the full gamut, that there's more than that, right? Because if you look at those videos, you'll see some white folks marching alongside the Freedom Riders also trying to help. And so I think that's how I navigated ultimately. There's two polarizing sides, but my statement and what I'm trying to get at is really make it the best for my future generation of students by telling the truth, always telling the truth.
You can't argue with the truth. You can argue about opinions about the truth. Yes. You can't argue with the truth.
The truth is truth, right? Exactly.
Okay, so you got out of college. You're like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. How'd you get started?
Oh, shoot. Let's see. I started rapping in school for my students.
Hey, that's right, kids. Okay.
There was one of my students. His name was Kendall. This was, I think, 2011. That's really, when I was teaching in Inglewood. And he was listening to a song in the cafeteria. And I was like, hey, Kendall, what you listening to, man? Then he gave it to me. I put it on my ear. I was like, okay. Oh, what is this? What? It was Chief Keef. Nothing I don't like. Hey. And I've never heard Chief Keef prior to this, James. I didn't know what I was listening to. I took it off. I'm like, hey, Kendall, this is trash, man. This is what I don't understand what he's saying. And so he said something to me, and he said, Mr. Brown, I bet you can't do better.
Oh.
I mean, come on, James. What you think?
I would never tell you that. I'm sorry. I just met you, and I would never tell you that. I would never tell you.
What you think I'm gonna do? So I went home and I made a song because we're teaching about the reasons leading up to the Boston Tea Party, and I was like, stamp act, that's that thing I don't like. Hey, quartering act, that's that thing I don't like. And I brought it to class. I recorded on like my wife's, my girlfriend at the time, her little crappy computer, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay. And the kids loved it. They loved it. And so that's really when I first started rapping, because I felt that as an educator, I could have kept doing the things the way I've been doing, that it was, it worked a little bit. But if I didn't make the school and the time learning fun, right? If it wasn't engaging to the students, then ultimately I'm failing them. They're going to forget about me. They're going to forget about the lesson, and they're not going to enjoy it while they're doing it. And so that's really the first time I start rapping. And then from there, of course, I took up the mantle Griot B. You know what a griot is, right, James?
Tell everybody who doesn't know.
I bet. So this is, I love my name. So my rap name has meaning, right? I ain't no little B. You know what I'm saying? No little rapper, little teach. No, that's not me. I'm Griot B. young educate. No, Griot B.
So yes, what's the name?
Our history in West Africa, a griot historically was a storyteller, right? A poet. A griot.
Yeah, now today.
Yeah, I know you know this. I'm just refreshing your memory.
Not today, yeah.
Before Islam came to West Africa, when writing really came to West Africa through the trans-Saharan trade, we had what is called an oral tradition. That doesn't mean we're ignorant or dumb. No, we were great innovators and engineers, but rather all of our history was passed down generation through generation through these people called griots. And they would either the village, the kingdom, the tribe, whatever it was, they would know the histories of everyone in there. And the next generation, they would learn all that, and then the rest of the history. So that's what a griot is. So I said, if I'm gonna take an artist name, that's what I want to be. I'm gonna be the person. I'm gonna take a name that has meaning, and the name Griot means I'm a storyteller, a poet, a person, a historian, and an advisor. So I do that for, I think, adults and children. I educate about our history collectively.
I'll tell you something. No, I'm not. Now when you said, I was like, because I'm a spoken word artist myself, as many things I do. And my grandmother from the South, I learned how to cook from her. There was nothing written down. It was, watch me, I'm telling you how to put this much in this much, and to this day, I know how to make shrimp Creole, I know how to make gumbo, I know how to do it. I don't, there's no recipe written down, there's no piece of paper has anything on it. It is, but you're right, they come from that type of thing where if you can't remember it, then oh well, then I guess you're gonna lose it. But then you feel like you don't want to lose it because it's so important that you really do remember it. And so when I get to the kitchen, they're like, "What do you need? I need this, and this." And well, how much? I just know this. It's a dash of this. That's how I was taught. You're right. That's how I was taught. Another thing I want to bring up, you said something that was really important. So I'm in Inglewood. I'm from Inglewood, but also right next to Viewpoint. I'm in the Hyde Park section, so I'm like right next to Viewpark, and my grandmother lives over there. My uncles and them were very much Afrocentric growing up. Played drum circles. They were doing all this stuff, and I used to remember. Being introduced to Gil Scott-Heron, that was one of my idols. One of my sports idols, Brian Jackson, Gil Scott-Heron. I grew up with all that stuff. You're right. They would tell, that's the first history lessons, mind you. You know what I'm talking about. Those are the first history lessons I got. Unofficial history lessons I got from listening to those records and seeing them in concert, in Liverpool Park, or seeing them, in St. Anne's Village, or whatever. All those places. I remember seeing them, and they were telling me stuff. Early rap especially, they were telling us stuff that I'm going to school, I'm at Inglewood High School or over here, and they're not teaching me this stuff. I wasn't learning that over there. Not at all. So I love it. So I love your school on rapping, that the whole rapping thing is that, so is it a matter of meeting folks where they are? Is that what that's about?
Yeah, yes. And also, James, if I just ask you right now, say your ABCs for me.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z.
Right. You sing it. we are hardwired, right, as humans to learn better through music. I mean, since we're children, that's why many of the things we do is through music. And so hip hop has been a genre of evolution. I mean, start as party, right, and fun and enjoyable times. That's the purpose. I mean, the origin of hip hop. It also went to protest, right? There was the language of the streets. Gangster rap, you know, that was storytelling what was going on in the narrative. And it's shifted and changed over time. But what I'm doing is kind of taking that same ideology of, you know, KRS-One in the past, but, you know, gangster rap and a little bit of all of it, telling stories, but for the specific intent and purpose of teaching, right? And the reason why I do it is, yes, to meet learners where they are, but also provide a different avenue. And I think an avenue that sticks with you, right? As we just saw, that everybody can learn, but in a fun way, right? And my target has been children through some of my albums, but it's also adults. I mean, we perform at colleges, over like 56 colleges around the country in 19 states, because adults appreciate this too, and they learn with music as well. So yeah, it's reaching people where they are, but I think also pushing the envelope of music. And I want to try, my goal is to create a whole new lane, James. I'm really endeavoring to be so great at what I do, to gain accolades and to provide great content, so much so that in the future, people are like, yo, education rap. Oh, that's the thing. Oh yeah, Griot B started that way back in 2016, right? And that's what I aspire to get to the level of that.
Would you say, you mentioned college? I mean, I'm old. I'm 52 years old. I'm old. So I think to me, they're all kids. I mean, college is kids. I mean, the average college age is what, 18 to 25 or something like that. I still feel like that's still young. That's still impressionable. I see why your stuff works. Like they're not adults or they're not fully formed, but you're still forming yourself. And I was going to college was the best thing for me. I went to Cal State Chico. That was the best thing for me.
You went to Chico State?
I lived in Sacramento. I know that whole area.
Wait.
Whole area.
What year did you graduate from Chico State or attend Chico State?
Back in pioneer days, back when it was actually a party school.
I know some people that went there when you went there, James.
1991.
91? Yeah. Shoot, who was that? Chico State. My fraternity chapter is Sac State, Davis, and Chico. So yeah, the Q's at Chico. Yeah, they're the party school, man. We had to go there.
Party school. My sisters were there. I followed them. I got grants back then. So I went. I said, okay, thank you, Inglewood. I got those Cal grants. I went up there, and I have no college debt. Thank you, Jesus. But that was a long time ago. But yes, I know. Yeah, I was up there for a long time. Yes, but I did get education though. I'm smart. I guess that's my name. I got education. I'd like going back to. I just think it's such a great thing that you are taking what's out there, taking education, and you're putting it together for college students also. Because again, who knows where they came from? I mean, growing up, and like I said, I learned a lot of stuff in college. That's when I started taking actual African American studies, African stuff. Like there were things I had no idea, and I grew up in the hood. I had no idea we did as Black folks. Yeah. Like you said, our regular American history.
Right. Yeah, the majority of teachers are white women, right? In addition, the lessons that are taught in schools are slavery and Dr. King. And I make the point about white women because even if you went to a school in the inner city, typically you most likely had white women as teachers. That's why I made that. And so because of that, I think there's a lack of knowledge in general, because here's the thing, it's a cycle, right? And I point this out whenever I do my performances or professional developments for school districts. If teachers, right, that I've been teaching for 10 years, they've only ever learned when they were kids, slavery and Dr. King, right? Then that's all they're going to teach typically because that's what they know. So it's not necessarily always the teacher's fault or the adult's fault, but it's just the nature of the educational system not to be purposeful for this information. So when you say college students are, they're young, but they're still not learning these things at home at all. In fact, if you talk about you as a 52-year-old, you may have learned some things, but I guarantee you listen to my Black History album, Our Story, or my next album, Racism, and there's going to be things in there that you have never heard that are going to educate and enlighten you. And you'll be grateful for it because it's just another modality, of reading and learning. Instead of reading a book, you can listen to my albums.
Right, and you're right. And I also go, the education never ends. The education should never end as long as you're alive. I mean, as long as I'm still going, I want to learn stuff all the time. And I am still learning things about our people that I just had no idea. I did a show. I had a show called Breaking Into on Black Hollywood Live years ago. They're out of business now, but I did a show with them, and I had Nzinga Stewart. She is a female, wonderful Black female director, great lady. I love her to death. But she told about why she changed her name, her first name, to an African name. And she said she went to West Africa and went to where there's a line, literally a line where when they crossed, they told the slaves, that name you had is done. Now you're going to where we're going, you're done. And she said she heard their inner turmoil. She heard their cries. So she took her Americanized name and changed it to an African name on purpose. And she knew, I mean, it made me cry. It made me cry when she told me the story. But she said she knew that she came back to America, she already has strikes against her, so to speak, being a Black woman, all that kind of stuff, director. But she thought, I don't care. Why not? Why not? I'm going to make it in spite. She is making it in spite of her name, so to speak. We always get scared, our name, our hair, or whatever. You change your name. It's like it's like there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with taking names from African history.
Yeah, if we learn about Tchaikovsky and Dostoyevich, all these other names, no reason why we can't also incorporate our names from our culture as well. Interesting thing about that, I got a song on my next album, that releases on Monday, called Racism. The song itself is called 200 Seconds, where I talk about Black women. What you just said about Nzinga makes me really think about a line. I said, you're lucky not to live how a Black woman feel. Racism and sexism, that's a raw deal. Making 31% less than a white man, 21% less than a white woman, right? So it's like, as a Black woman, the plight is doubly as difficult, right? And that's not necessarily the purpose of me talking right now, but rather that point that you just mentioned about Nzinga really made me think about that line right there. That's deep. That's a great story. I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, Black women, we don't treat our Black women like we should. I'm sorry. As Black men, we need to treat them a lot better. I think they hold it down for us. And Black women are the types that will ride or die with us, no matter how us men do them, because we're Black, because we are part of the same tribe. They will hold it down. And as I've gotten older, I've appreciated it more. I've lost a lot of Black women in my lives. When you get older, you just lose people in your lives. I think, God, my grandmothers were strong. They were strong. My grandmother, Lott, came with 5 boys from Louisiana in the early 60s, 5 boys single on the train, landed in Nickerson Gardens and Watts, and worked 3 jobs.
Yeah.
So they didn't have to. My uncles are smart. All my uncles have degrees. They're all smart. My father, they're all smart. But she did that, she said, so they wouldn't have to do that.
Yeah.
And now most kids, a lot of us, we have our degrees and stuff, and we have our things too. So I look at her, I go back to her and go, okay, well, she did all that. I can't even clean my bathroom sometimes. I'm too tired sometimes, clean my bathroom. But she's doing it for a living 5-6 days a week, in addition to raising kids. So the Black women, I'm always like, Black women, whatever you want. I'm just like, I want to give it to you, because I feel they do get a raw deal. I see you agree with that. I'm sure you agree with that.
Yeah, I do. African culture, West African culture, there are many tribes, villages, and ethnic groups that are matrilineal, meaning that the power to rule, the power to make judgment runs through the bloodline of the mother, as opposed to what we have in America, Europe, because it comes from Europe, as patrilineal, where it's all about the father's bloodline. So there's always been a respect for women ingrained into West African culture, right? And if you think about, as you just said, women, Black women in this country, many of them have had to be strong, right? And I know that's, in the past 2 years, that's been a moniker that's a lot of Black women are trying to take away. But what I'm saying is, ultimately, because of this, the strength had to become out of necessity because of this American culture, right? American culture instills systemic marginalization, right? And so African-American males have systemically, right, been weaving and taken out of the family structure through over-policing, there was times in our country's history where you couldn't receive welfare from government payment if there was a father in the home, right? So, there's systems that have been placed for that. And that's not anything diminishing the strength and the glory of women, rather it's also acknowledging that a part you said is, Black men have to do better. I think that all men need to be doing better and understanding the value and appreciation of Black women. And I think Black men in specific have had some missed opportunities that have been forced upon them because of the structure of our government and our American culture at times.
It's true. And I may sound harsh about it, but I just do. I feel like we should, but you're right. You're actually right about that. There are a lot of things, systems in place. Someone told me the other day, James, our system is broken. It's not broken.
Mm.
The system was set up the way it was set up. It's not broken. It works. Come on, Griot. You know, it works. The shit works. It's not working in our favor, but it does work. The system works. What's supposed to happen is happening.
Right.
And they were like, what? I mean, and that goes back to your history. You start learning about the history of what's going on. They'll be like, oh, James, that totally makes sense. Yes, you're absolutely right. So I see you agree with me on that one.
I do, man. KKK here, Black Panthers gone. Cops kill Fred Hampton, sleep in his home. NYPD, anti-discrimination chief, has racist text in the phone. That's why the Klan wore hoods, to hide their faces. Low-life white supremacists in high places. Every system needs a facelift. It ain't broken, so erase it. It's working just how white supremacists designed it, so erase it. Like that's exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, I agree with you. I think we're in agreement in there.
Yeah, I like that. But no, but it's just, and I was like sitting there mesmerized. I like it. No, it's true. It's just true. The system isn't broken. Right. It needs to be fixed on some level. But it's not broken. It's like just need things to change. So okay, so what history? So that is your thing. I love it. It's like you have the homeschool history of the folks. We go on his IG and start scrolling down. Yeah. You might see him in an outfit or two. Hair, and Kill Story. Your stuff is hilarious. I mean, and it was also insightful too. I mean, I don't want to diminish that at all. It's very insightful, but it is kind of funny. I'm like, this big old black man. I'm a big black man too. Like, you're a big old black man. I'm there just educating. So, how do you use social media? What is it? What does that mean to you in your branding and your business?
Yeah. In truth, falteringly, I need to do a lot better on my social media. However, and when I have used it, it's a generational gap for me. I didn't grow up. I'm 86, so I grew up in the age where I still remember the phone number of my first high school girlfriend. I walked down the payphone and call her. Right, phones and social media wasn't ingrained into my everyday life, so it's been more difficult for me. That's what I mean by faltering. Like, it's been difficult for me to get on it. But when I have used social media, it's truly to over the time I travel, I get fans. I say, hey kid, follow me, right? Follow me after I perform. And I get a lot of people. Like, all those, I only have 77,000 or 7,900. I forget, like close to 8,000 followers. All those are organic in a sense where it's all been from students or adults who I performed in front of, and I say, hey, follow me, etc. So when I provide social media content, it's really to connect, right? And to provide something that they, as they're scrolling through with all the fun stuff, with all the busset challenges and the silhouettes challenges. They could have something a little different. More than anything, if I'm just going to be honest, it's for me, it's a challenge right now because it's so important to connect to this generation through social media, right? And I feel if I have an area of growth, one of them would be to improve my social media game to further connect with these potential students, potential fans, potential learners who are out there. And that's something I need to work on or get better at.
Yeah, no, but it's some fun stuff. I mean, social media I tell people all the time, again, it's what you make it. It's what you make of it. Yes, it can be all these other things, but you can carve out your own niche in there too. And I'm gonna invite you, Griot B, to use it more.
Yes,
go back to using it more.
Well, you mentioned the costumes, right? And so during the pandemic, right? My business, part of me was Schoolyard Rap, by the way, Schoolyard Rap, education through entertainment. Our entire business was really built around us traveling and performing at school sites, right? And you can just imagine when March hit, after we just finished a great Black History Month tour, that I was like, oh crap, what am I gonna do for a business? So
nowhere. Everything was closed.
Right? And so I had to figure out what to do. And so I got a green screen in the house. I bought a bunch of costumes, and I'm like, I'm gonna rap I got all these songs. I got like 6 albums worth of songs. Let me rap them in front of green screen and wear it. But after a while, I just said, I wasn't as consistent as I could have been. But yeah, no, if you scroll down, you'll see a bunch of homeschool history.
You'll see it, folks.
You'll see Black Fact Friday, Latinas Lesson Lunes.
Yes. I loved it. I loved it. Okay, so I want to now get to the nitty gritty of, because I'm a writer myself and everything, of course. I want to know, how do you come up with these raps? I mean, how hard is it? How easy are some? Like, how do you? Because you're incorporating actual history and stuff in the lyrics. You're not just making stuff about thin air. It's like you're writing stuff and then having to a certain beat and cadence and all that? I mean, how do you even do that?
That's a good question. You know what? I'll start by saying this. There are companies out there who they have music, right? They make they teach through music, right? That's their brand thing. Won't mention their name because they're competitors. But I pride myself as a company as an artist is that I make music that teaches. My first purpose is for the music to sonically sound good. I don't want to come off as corny. I don't want to come off as cheesy. I want my students or any learner, right? When I say students, it's adults, anybody who's listening. I want the students who are listening to my music to firstly like love the beat and be like, oh yeah, what's this? And then trick them into learning. And so my writing process stems from me firstly getting the beats, right? And getting the instrumentation that I like to use and working with producers. I got my family, my cousin is a producer out in Fresno, California. He's one of the main persons. Shout out to Dre the Most, Frequency Club Studios in Fresno, California. He's the individual who I work with. He has a whole team of young cats who are hip to the streets and know the sounds. And so right there. And then from there, it's about ultimately the information. So all my information is fact checked in triplicate, right? So it's not like Google. Oh, this is it. No, I have to have 3 points of proof for my information before I put it, because the last thing I want to do is lie to somebody, right? And so it's all about that. If I pan the camera over, you'll see my entire library of books that I continuously read so that I can have as resources. And so let's take, for instance, this album I'm about to drop on Monday called Racism. That album right there, it's taken me about 2 years to write it fully together. And when I say that, it's just different songs have been pieced together over time. But really, after last summer, with all the summer of unrest, we're going to call it, because of the murders of George Floyd, of the murders of Breonna Taylor, the murders of Jacob Blake, like everything that was happening, the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. Because of that, my wife didn't want me to go out to protest anymore. So she wanted me to stay in the house. She was pregnant. We just had our first baby. Shout out to Ajani. If you ever listen to this song, what's up? So she didn't want me to protest.
I love that name. I love that name.
Yeah, Ajani Amir. It means victorious through the struggle. I love it. My wife.
I like that.
Yeah, she chose it. I can't even take credit. If it was my choice, be another Brandon running around. We don't need another Brandon. No. My DJ's name is Brandon. That's what's crazy. He's DJ Leo, but he's Brandon. That's
hilarious. That's hilarious. Yeah.
But I finished the album really over the summer. And then, the fall, I started to really hone into finishing that album. So those have been a 2-year process. The majority of the tracks, it all came together because there was a purpose behind it now at this point. For me, every album has to have a specific intent and purpose. They're kind of like theme albums, they can't just be arbitrary. So I got Our Story, which is the entire album about Black history, and I tell it through a story through student poems. Historia, which is about Latinx history, and then Racism, which is about the history of systematic marginalization in this country. And that's told through a bookends of Abraham Lincoln and Lyndon B. Johnson, 2 white men that have given us freedom and also given us equal civil rights.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But real quotes that they said that really spur the conversation. I'm not going to give in too much, but yeah, check it out on Monday. But yeah, it takes me a little bit of time to write, man.
Okay, I can't wait. We're gonna make sure everybody knows. When I see that, I follow you now on Instagram, so we're gonna make sure I share your stuff. I'm sure share your stuff. So when the album comes out, we'll be sharing it to folks. We will get there. But so it took you 2 years, well, okay? Because I do albums, but usually my raps are stuff that around the world. But I'm like, your stuff is very specific, and I understand it. It has to make sense. Every album has to make sense. It can't be just like this random, this over here and that over here. You want to be a cohesive. That's what I was looking for.
Exactly.
Cohesive product. So we can go, this is what this album's about. You'll get it through all this, and there you go. And you'll see problems. I love that. Do you think we'll ever go back to stage and public again? I mean,
yeah, I think it will. I think the nation is so tired of the pandemic. Mind you, I'm not one of these doubters. I believe that the coronavirus is real, and I have family who's affected by it. And also, I think that there are many individuals in the nation that are so tired of everything that eventually they're just like, yo, we need to get this right and fix it. And so I think we're on the way. And yes, I truly hope that we will be in live and doing concerts again. And trust me, James, when it happens, you're gonna see something so phenomenal because right before the pandemic, we already had about 71 schools already booked and ready for the specific concerts. We were about to start doing concert style where we started my first year, we went to colleges, right? The second year, I went to individual school sites. And then that third tour, Latinx History Tour, I started to go into districts. So I stayed in a district for a whole week. So then the next step was for us to rent out a venue and schools to come to us. Like that was going to be the next thing. And it was going to be, I mean, and it's our music, but it was going to be, I'm upping the production value so much. So I'm really excited for that. And when it happens, I told my wife, I'm going to be like Tyler Perry. Griot B is going to be the Medea. We're going to make it so big, travel around the country and start my own production studio one day to tell our own stories to everybody.
I support that 1,000%. 1,000% I support that. And it's one of those things that, you know, some people, you know, I think you're like me, we dream big. I've always been a big dreamer. And that's why I started my own online network last year. I was like, there's a void and I decided to fill it. And I feel like you're the same way. You're like, you see there's a void and you're like, I'm here to fill it, folks. I'm here to go right on in and fill it. There's nooks and crannies. I'm going to be no nooks and crannies. I'm ready to do it. I can tell you are. You're that kind of, were you always a go-getter?
Yeah, I've always been this way. I've always been a go-getter, compassionate heart person. My mom always said, you know, I was always broke as a kid because we get our allowance, but then I give my brother and sisters, I give them my money, get ice cream, you know, so my compassion is what drives me, but also it's my ambition. You know what I'm saying? Like there's people who are good with a 9-to-5 and God bless them. Like, I mean, that's perfectly fine. That stability suits people. I was that person, but no matter when I was there, I was always thinking about next and grander. I have high aspirations and I believe that we're put on this life to fulfill a purpose and goal and also to kind of live life and enjoy it while doing so. And I believe that, you know, as a kid and even now, like I'm always about trying to reach those goals I set for myself, no matter how lofty. And now that I have a son, it's about the legacy. My wife and I, we work together. She's the chief academic officer of my company. She helps write all the curriculum. She's smarter than me. Berkeley, Columbia, superintendent.
Well, she's beautiful too. I saw her. She's beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
So you like that.
You know what I do.
I was gonna say she traded something, but you lucked out. She like,
I climbed up the ladder to get her. I tell you that. It ain't the other way around. we strive.
That's great.
And now that we have a son, the point is to leave a legacy for him and to really have wealth and put him in a position, a place in life so that he can do better than I did, right, in life, but never forget the lessons of grind, of hustle, of humility that I believe I got growing up as well from our parents.
Are you glad you're having a son now, this time of your life, and are you glad you didn't have one younger and earlier? Are you glad you're having one now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hit or miss because I've always wanted a lot of kids. And, you know, the older you get, my wife and I are the same age. It's a little more difficult, but I believe I'm a lot more grounded. I was not fit to have. I mean, God, you know, I believe in God, so I'm saying God. He doesn't let anything happen at any time for it, right? I mean, I believe that I think that things happen for a reason. And by the grace of God, I got my wife. But at the younger age, I wouldn't have been ready. And also, I think I didn't have as clear as a vision as I did now. This is my first stint as an entrepreneur. This is my first time me sticking it out and really going for it.
What is your message to your son right now?
You said what?
What is your message to your son right now?
My favorite quote. I read it to him every day. I tell him this every day. So I want to say my message is that the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the commitment to excellence, regardless of the field of endeavor. In other words, your life will be as successful as you commit to as much excellence, which an excellence, Booker T. Washington, is doing the common thing uncommonly. That's my message. I know it's not like this hopeful, wishful thing. Rather, it's a grind. It's like you'll have a great life as long as you commit to excellence, no matter what you do. Janitor, construction worker, which my father is, a preacher, pastor, politician, whatever it is. If you commit to excellence, son, you'll have a wonderful life. That's a guarantee.
I completely second that. I think we have to sugarcoat things because these generations like to have a little easy these days. I'm like, and I keep saying there's no substitute for hard work. There just really isn't. Hard work and perseverance and commitment are really the things you need, or the ingredients you need to have success. I agree with you completely. I disagree with you on that. I think it's a great message for not only your son, but for anyone out there who's a little younger than we are, who's looking for something, and just those are the things, work towards excellence. Yeah. Everything will come. I was told that by mentors of mine.
Mm.
Don't chase the money. Don't chase the dollar. Don't chase it. It will come when you're doing your purpose. Right? That's what it is. It is. And you found your calling. You found your calling. You found your calling. You're doing it.
I'm blessed of being able to find it, man. I'm finding it. I mean, I'm sure you feel the same way. I mean, you're an entrepreneur, right? Too, right? This is what you do. This is, you're building a following. Why did you start this?
I turned 40 years old.
And
I was at a corporate job making $200,000 a year, benefits, living high on the hog in San Francisco. Hated it. My stomach hurt every day for 8 months. And when I gave notice at that job, I almost started cussing. I F you not. 5 minutes later, my stomach stopped hurting.
Really?
Now people trust your gut. Trust your gut.
Trust your gut.
And literally, and I was turning 40 years old, and I said, you know what? What was once great is not great anymore. What's once worked does not work anymore. And you know what? And no is an okay sentence.
No is an okay.
That's right, kids.
I like that. No is an okay sentence. I love that.
That's how I came up with it. I said, okay. And I said, I made a promise to myself. I looked in the mirror, made a promise. Like, hey, James Lott Jr., you will not do anything you do not want to do anymore. You're done. I did things I had to do because I had kids to raise. And I also had things to do, the things you had to do. But I'm like, now the kids are grown. I became a grandparent. I had grandkids. I'm good. They're taken care of. They're good. They got jobs. They're good. I have no excuse. I have no excuse. And I felt also, I'm a big village person. My fans and followers know about the village. I felt like I'm part of the village. And I'm one of the elders now, so to speak. It's my job to lead by example. And so if I go out there and do the things that I want to do, younger folks will see that and maybe they'll follow suit. And as a Black man, I want to show people we can do all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of things we can do and affect change. I want to affect positive change in the world. That's what I want to do. And so through this, my medium of TV, radio, podcast, books, music, spoken word, interviews, I feel like I can change in the world and talk to people like you and other people out there and showcase. My commitment was to showcase Black and brown people who are doing positive stuff. Wow. You know, we're in a world where we don't get the representation all the time. You're not being called on Jimmy Kimmel and stuff or anything. You know, like it's not yet. You will be. I believe it. You will be. But I'm saying, but right now we have to support and lift each other. We just have to. And that was my literally. It wasn't about the money because I made good money. I know what making good money is. I wasn't happy. I literally was not happy. I'm like, now I'm making some money now, but it was kind of like I'd rather make less money and have enough to cover my bills and stuff and be way happier and also serving my community. Right.
Yeah. Can't be so bent on catching that buck that you lose yourself while doing so. Right. I get it. And you are doing that. And also there's no reason why you can't make money doing what you love doing and doing something that's fulfilling your purpose. Like when I tell people, hey, we're not a nonprofit for a reason. I am a for-profit company. There's no reason why I can't make millions and millions of dollars as Schoolyard Rap, because guess what I'm going to do with this heart that I have, because my purpose is aligned just like yours. It's going to invest right back into the communities that I care about. Like it's not going to be hoarded in my pocket like I'm Scrooge McDuck. No, it's going to be back into the place that you love, right? And the people that need it. Yeah, man, that's a beautiful thing.
Very true. And that's the next thing too. You can tell people you can. And nowadays, this is especially for you, especially niche programming, niche work, literally is in right now. The more if you have a certain style, don't be afraid to try it, put it out there, and see what happens. You never know. And all you need is one pair of eyes on you that could change your life. You have no idea.
My mama literally said that years ago when I first dropped the first album, the Black History album. She said, yeah, all it takes is the right person to see you. And you know what? Over this time, there's been people like, oh yeah, I'm gonna help you here. I'm gonna do this, right? And it didn't, there's been times earlier where I was waiting on that, right? But then I learned, no, you just got to keep grinding. Just like you said, don't chase the money, you continue with the product. So I just kept grinding, keeping it going. And, I believe we're at a much better place than we are then. But even along the way, James, there's been people trying to steal my work, right? There's been people trying to do what I'm doing, right? Big time people, people with fingers into the music industry, seeing what I did and say, oh yeah, that looks good. Let me do that. Let me partner up. And ultimately, I let them do it because one of my favorite lines I tell all the entrepreneurs and different entertainers I meet, I say, everybody eats. There's money out there for everybody, right? Fine. It's not mine. It ain't coming from the heart like mine is. It ain't coming from the soul, and it ain't gonna be as good as mine. And if it is good, you best believe I'm gonna be listening to it and be like, okay, I'm coming with something better, because that competitor in me is always gonna be there to be the best possible person in my lane. Within my capabilities. So, you know,
I mean, I want to make sure that anything I put out, I can stand by it.
Yeah, no, yes. It's important. People see things before they buy things. My mom always said that. So everything we do, it's like it has to be top-notch quality, because no matter what, you're going to want me you want my business again because of the content, but also you're going to be like, oh yeah, that looked amazing. Like, we just had how many programs? We had 3 shows today, James. 3 virtual shows today we did. And you know, my DJ, we got an audio technician, we got the cameras. I got, you know, we don't just have, you know, every video that every time we perform, we have lyric videos for every song that I perform. So now visual learners can look at these illustrated videos and learn while they're listening to the music. So it's just the production value is essential to continue to grow the business, and to have people invest and say, hey, I want to continue investing into your business because you gave us a product that was above and beyond what we did. These are just lessons for any entrepreneur out there right now. That's what it is. Make sure your product is as top quality as you can get it at that moment, right? It's going to take time. It's going to take some time to get it there, but where you are, try to get the best you can within the area you are, and then work. And the next time, level up, like Sierra say, Russell Wilson.
No, it's true. I'm glad you win. Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that part, because I was going to say to people out there, you can always look back. Like, don't wait for perfection. That's not going to happen. No. Still do your stuff. Put it out there. Stand by it. Do the best you can. Then later on, you can look back on it and go, remember when I did that, 5 years ago? And you get, but actually, it's a great marker later to go, well, look how far we've come.
Right.
I mean, some early work, I'm like, I wouldn't do that now. But I did with the best equipment I had at the time, with the best knowledge I had at the time. You learn, hopefully, along the way. You get better equipment along the way. You get better. It gets better, hopefully, for you. So in the beginning, don't be ashamed. Do it. You do your little thing. A few glitches here and there. A little grainy video. Okay, that's fine. My voice hiccup a couple times. Okay, fine. I remember I did my first radio show. I said so 10,000 times that first episode. Well, it just happened that way. I don't say it anymore. Oh, goes, you said so much. I wouldn't hear the word anymore. I'm like, I know. I can't believe I said that. But she's like, but you got on the radio. You have a radio show. So like, I mean, that's the bottom line. It's like, at least and the show, because the show was good. Now it's just one thing that came up. So you learn from that. And so you can look back and go, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember that cheap stuff we used in the background, but now, but don't wait for perfection. Just try to be as good as you can wherever you are. Don't try to spend over your means if you're not ready yet. If you have a cell phone, use your cell phone, but try to do it the best you can with what you have. So
because when it comes down to it, the more you do it, the better you'll become at it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's 100%. That's good advice. Good advice for any listener out there, James. Now, is it James Lott Jr.? Are you a full name type of guy? Dr. James Lott Jr.?
No, everybody calls me James Lott Jr. or JLJ. I get that all. I didn't even start that. They say it's like one name. They're like Tina Turner. It's just James Lott Jr. I get that all the time for the last 30 years of my life. James Lott Jr., JLJ, James Lott. I get both. I get both all the time. No one calls me James. Like, I don't think, even my mother says, hi, James Lott Jr. I'm like, what's up, your son? Like,
not
my dog says James Lott Jr. I'm your father. No, I'm James Lott Jr. So it's kind of a joke. Everyone says James Lott Jr. or JLJ. That's why I'm a three-name person. My father's James Lott Sr. and I'm James Lott Jr. That's how we do. That's how we do. That's how we do. That's how we do. That's right. Well, I love you. I think you are a wonderful, beautiful Black man who is doing some great stuff. We don't say enough to each other. So that's what I'm saying it to you. I have no shame in saying that. You are a beautiful Black man who's doing stuff inside and out. And I'm your friend now too, but I'm your fan also. I'm a fan. I'm following your progress and seeing what you're doing. And whatever I can do to shine a light or help or whatever, feel free to ask me anytime. I have no problem with this whatsoever.
I appreciate that. I thank you for your time. I thank you for the platform, for inviting me on here and, having faith enough. And more importantly, doing your cursory information. I mean, first of all, we joked about in the beginning, but, I've been called, my name is Griot B, but I've been called Grits. I've been called G Riot. I've been called Groot. I've been called I've been called so many things, James Lott Jr., right? And it's like, bruh, So the fact that you did your research, right? That you looked at my Instagram page, you learned a little bit about me. I mean, I think that anybody doing podcasts and want to do one, do your research on your interview, on your interviewees, because it's important. So now thank you 100%. I want to say, shameless plug, everybody. My name is Griot B. Go check out all of our music on Spotify. Our Black History album, Our Story, Latinx History album, Historia. And on Monday, we got our new album for adult learners. It is amazing. I think it is groundbreaking. It is going to change, I believe, the fabric of education in this country. And for everybody to listen to this album, it's called Racism, which stands for Realizing American Culture Instills Systemic Marginalizations. 15 tracks that will teach you about the history of racism in this country, the history of structures that are still going today, so that you may have intellectual and intelligent conversations because you have an understanding, because through the work that I do and the music that you'll listen to. So please go take a listen to that on Monday, cop it, buy it, stream it, whatever the case is, because I think it's going to help to make my country better.
And I'm going to make sure in the description I will add links to stuff. And of course, you follow me at James Lott Jr. everywhere. You will see his stuff on my pages. I'll make sure there's some stuff on my pages so you can see what's going on. We're going to promote the F out of this record. That's what we're going to do, folks. Get into the right hands, right ears, right ears. Old. I miss actual albums. I forgot. So right ears. Right ears.
I have so many. When I first came out, I bought thousands of albums for my first album. I'm like, oh yeah, and then students like, what is this? I'm like, it's in your car, don't you? She's like, no, we have the ox. I said, oh, they sit in my storage still.
I missed them. Well, some this does well for DJing stuff, but for, like you said, for regular folks, they don't do anything for that. That's like crazy. I missed the record. So, folks, thanks for the show is In Between Pages with James Lott Jr. We're on Facebook. I'm everywhere at JLJ Media. JLJ Media is the company. Go ahead. It's down here, over here, somewhere down there. Hit the subscribe button. The audio version will be on every streaming platform you think of. So just wherever you like to listen to stuff, go there and like it. Share it so anybody who thinks needs to hear this. Any kids need to hear this, adults need to hear this, just share it to everybody. I'm James Lott Jr. Griot B is here with